among the brightest spots on the global economic landscape. Why then are the rich queuing up to leave India? According to the Henley Private Wealth Migration Report 2023, which tracks wealth and investment migration trends globally, India is expected to witness an exodus of scores of millionaires and may in fact lose as many as 6,500 high net worth individuals in 2023 alone. China has been ranked first in terms of the outflow of millionaires from the country. It is predicted to lose 13,500 high net worth individuals, followed by India, which is in the second spot. It is a slight improvement though over last year, as 2022 saw 7,500 millionaires leaving India and moving to foreign shores. Now, according to Henley and Partners, millionaires or high net worth individuals are people with investable wealth of $1 million or more. Andrew Amoyles, the head of research at the New World Wealth, argues that these outflows are not particularly concerning, as India produces far more new millionaires than it loses to migration. But the question still remains, why is India losing its wealthiest citizens? According to Sunita Singh Dalal at Private Wealth and Family Offices, prohibitive tax legislation coupled with convoluted and complex rules relating to outbound remittances that are open to misinterpretation and abuse are among the primary factors that have triggered the trend of investment migration from India. Some have even termed it tax terrorism. So, where are these rich Indians moving, you might wonder? Dubai and Singapore are the most preferred destinations for wealthy Indian families. Dubai, also known as the fifth city of India, is particularly attractive for its government-administered Global Investor Golden Visa program, favorable tax environment, robust business ecosystem, and a safe and peaceful environment. The report further predicts that globally, Australia will witness the highest net inflow of millionaires in 2023, followed by the UAE, which had a record-breaking influx last year. Next on the list is Singapore, followed by the United States, and then you have Switzerland, Canada, Greece, France, Portugal, and New Zealand on the list. On this show, we're asking, should India be concerned by these exodus figures? Despite India being a global economic bright spot, why are rich Indians leaving the country? And what does the government of India need to do to stem this rate of migration and reverse this growing trend? Let's throw this open to our panel of experts. Joining me on the show today is Dilip Cherian, founder of Perfect Relations. We're also joined by Yogendra Kapoor, a chartered accountant and a corporate tax expert. We'll also be joined in a moment by Narendra Vadhva, founder and MD of SKI Group. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Dilip Cherian, great to have you back. It's a very simple question that we're asking on the show. If India is indeed a bright economic spot, why are rich Indians leaving the country in hordes? Before you answer that question, I just want to read out for you and our viewers a tweet that was put out by Mohan Das Pai, one of the most preeminent voices in corporate India. He said, "This trend is very worrisome." He quoted the same report. He says the finance ministry is making life very difficult for high net worth individuals in India. There's too much tax terrorism, too much complex compliance like new TCS. We need to ease this. And he's tagged Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Prime Minister's office in his tweet. So, Dilip Cherian, is it tax terrorism, as Mohan Das Pai puts it, that is driving millionaires out of the country? Why is this happening according to you?
The key drivers are economic anxiety, anxiety about what's in store. And the second driver is unpredictability. The fact that high net worth individuals do not want to live in a situation where changes of rules could affect their incomes, their right to spend, as in this case, the right to spend overseas, for example. They just don't want to deal with unpredictability. We can always say that change is a constant, and this is what entrepreneurs are famous for. So they're happy with change as a constant as far as the business environment, operating environment is concerned. But as far as their own personal income environments are concerned, they don't want a situation where unpredictability is high. You quoted two figures, and for me, the figure that's worrying is that last year we lost 7,500, and this year we lose 6,500 or thereabouts. That shows that more and more people are actually trying to leave, and we are being left with less and less. That is worrying. And when I was talking to a very high net worth individual, he had this to say. He said that what should be worrying us is not the income of the people who are leaving, but the fact that they are also the job creators. And I think that is what is triggering Mohandas Pai and others to start raising the noise about this. They usually would not, but in this case, they recognize that as we lose people who are high net worth, what we are losing is engines of entrepreneurship.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's not just the money, the millions that we are losing. We are losing job creators at the end of the day, and we may be the fastest growing major economy in the world. We may be a bright spot on the global economic landscape, but let's not forget that with burgeoning figures of unemployment, we have a huge challenge on our hands. Therefore, these figures should concern us. Let me go across to Yogendra Kapoor. As I said earlier, he is a corporate tax expert. Mr. Kapoor, perhaps you can put into perspective for us this entire issue. What is this whole thing of tax terrorism that people like Mohandas Pai are talking about? Is this what is driving people out of the country? He talks about tax terrorism. He says the compliance rules are way too complex. Dilip Cheran says there is too much anxiety that stems from unpredictability. The rules and the laws keep changing here. You know, there is very often little or no notice given. We all saw what happened with demonetization, for example, in 2016. What, according to you, are the biggest factors that are driving this mass migration of millionaires from India?
Right now, see, we have to understand that ultimately it gets down to the creation of an ecosystem which supports the various aspects and factors. Now, we need to understand when it comes to wealth creators, it is important to understand that the respect for that wealth creator, as well as the very fact, if you are looking the same wealth creator with suspicion, they cannot go hand in hand. So my point is that if you talk of wealth creators, then they need to be respected, because at the end of the day, whatever a person does in his own country, he does it for two very aspects. One, he needs respect for his good work that he has done. And second, whether or not the policies of the government are such that they help him in having more money in his hands so that he can freely invest it, whether in the domestic economy or otherwise. So what I feel out here is the reverse that is happening. We have all seen it in the past that the wealth creators in this country, how they are being hounded by the political parties when it comes to the opposition. Now, if a person who sees that he is generating wealth for the nation, including, as Mr. Chirin rightly said, that they are the job creators as well. And at the same time, if you are being hounded, if you are being seen with suspicion, and coupled with also the fact that the tax policies of the government, if they remain unpredictable, when I talk of unpredictability, it means that it's not the small little rules or provisions that get changed. What is happening is that it's the kind of measures that take place which are bringing about shocks in the economy. So I think it's very important at the end of the day that government needs to be sensitive towards these aspects. And it is only when the government understands that they have to be an effective facilitator and not a roadblock in terms of the development of free mind of an entrepreneur, will we see on the ground that the things will take place the way they should. Right now, I see that it's a volatile environment, and which is we also have general elections that are going to take place in 2024. So I don't see much things happening on ground for a while.
Which means that we may actually lose more people than these figures have projected. Remember, we're only halfway through the year, and according to this particular report, we could lose 6,500 millionaires compared to 7,500 earlier. But maybe in the latter half of the year, you will actually have more people applying for, let's say, residency in some other countries. So are these numbers going to keep going up, especially over the next 1 year? Because this is an election year, which means greater unpredictability. Let me go across to Narendra Vadhva at this point. Narendra Vadhva, our panelists have made some excellent points. Dilip Cherian talked about the anxiety that exists thanks to this unpredictability, with the laws constantly changing at the drop of a hat. He also says, remember that it's not just the millions we should be counting. These are job creators that India is losing. Yogendra Kapoor says that, these job creators and wealth creators are treated with suspicion in their own country. Rather than being accorded respect, they're often hounded thanks to India's political environment. That, coupled with the uncertainty and unpredictability that exists, these individuals, it seems, no longer want to live in this country. What, according to you, is driving these individuals, these high net worth individuals out of the country? What's going so wrong? Mr. Vadhva, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, that question is for you.
Yeah. So before I answer your question, I must emphasize here, not all high net worth individuals are leaving India. Many individuals remain committed to their home country, India, and actively contributing to the development. Economic and political and social factors can also fluctuate over the time. That's why they are moving out of India. And it is not only tax terrorism, or my co-panelists have mentioned. There can be other reasons also which can influence their decision to leave India. And as we know that world has become a one nation kind of thing, there are hardly any boundaries. People may like to explore the quality of life, and the global mobility is there. They can relocate and very easily, which was not the case earlier. And they have their own preferences for that. We cannot say that it is only tax terrorism or other factor. India is again, their numbers are improving. Whole world is looking at India. As I may mention few data points, we had 97,000 startups as per the DIPP numbers, which have started, and many have crossed billion marks also. These startups, they are the job creators also who are in India, and they want to be in. They want to remain in India for the growth of the economy. So my limited point is that not all people are rushing to overseas countries. The world has become one nation without any boundaries, so they are exploring this.
Okay, Mr. Vadhva, it is nobody's case that all rich Indians or millionaires are moving abroad. However, the question we are asking is, should these figures concern us? The number went up to 7,500 last year. It could go up to 6,500 this year, according to these projections. Let me go back to Dilip Cherian at this point. Dilip Cherian, I have two questions for you. Apart from the tax terrorism that we keep talking about and the unpredictability of our tax laws, could political and social factors also be responsible for some of the uncertainty that we see? Some people might refer to, communal tensions that erupt in the country from time to time. How big are those factors, according to you, the socio-political factors apart from the economic factors? That's my first question to you. Second, we talk so much about ease of doing business. This is something that is said to be very close to the Prime Minister's heart. This government has always talked endlessly about promoting the ease of doing business in India. But given these facts and figures before us, is ease of doing business in India still just a myth or a mirage?
I'll deal with your first question, the socio-political one. The sad fact is that the kind of people we are talking about, the millionaires who are leaving India, are not really affected by the socio-political ebb and flow of what's going on. They live in cocoons, comfortable cocoons, may I say, and those cocoons are not buffeted by the changes in the socio-political system. They are at the top of the heap, and at the top of the pyramid, they don't feel these pressures that those at the bottom of the pyramid feel. That's one. On the second matter of is the ease of doing business getting easier? The answer is some things have gone easier, but there is lots to be done. Expectations are higher. The fact is that today you have a government which has for 9 years been screaming that we are making things easy for industry. But has that happened? Yes, to a marginal extent. But is there more to do? Yes, there's lots more to do. As Mr. Wadhwa said, the world is one global marketplace. So people compare how long it takes to start, or more importantly, how long it takes to close a company down. And if you ask me, things haven't got any easier for Indians who want to do this. And this is the entrepreneurial class's degrees of freedom that it wants. The degrees of freedom it wants are not the ability to walk on the streets safely in the night. The ability it wants is not the ability to choose the school where they want their kids to go. That they can afford. That's why they are millionaires. But what they have a problem with is that if they want to start a new company or want to acquire a company or want to close down a company simply because it's making losses, it is increasingly difficult in India and definitely not any easier. So when you talk to entrepreneurs, and in my work, I talk both to the political class as well as to the HNIs, to those investing in new companies and those in established old industries. All of them pretty much have the same problem. The problem is that it is not easy to do business. When you combine that with the fact that today the world is one global marketplace, then why be in a geography where that comfort is not guaranteed? The guarantee of that comfort is what mobile millionaires are looking for.
Guarantee of comfort. And not easy to do business in India. That's plain speaking by Dilip Cherian as always. And I want to, in fact, dwell on this business of ease of doing business in India in greater detail. But before that, Dilip Cherian, your thoughts on this. Andrew Amoyles, the head of research at the New World Wealth, reacting to this report, has argued that the outflows are not particularly concerning as India produces far more new millionaires than it loses to migration. Is that something you agree with, or is it now becoming a zero-sum game? We create new millionaires and then we end up losing a vast majority of them, if not all of them.
The worry I would have, Neha, is looking at the demographics or the age profile of these millionaires who are leaving. My suspicion is that the rich who are in their 50s and 60s are comfortable, and the restless and the rich who are in their 30s and 40s are saying, let's take a look elsewhere and let's look at what the choices are. So that creates anxiety for me because, one, if you see the number of millionaires who went abroad last year was certainly more than the number that is predicted to go this year. Is that because we are not producing larger numbers of them? That's one question. The second question, or the second theme that we need to look at is, are we driving away the young more than we are driving away the old and the established? If, as I suspect, we are driving away the young, who are looking at opportunities in the wild open, then we need to be concerned, because those are the people who are investing for the future. Those are the people who will invest in India's tomorrow. Those are the people who have the ability to create new engines of wealth creation. And we need them here more than we need those who are well past their prime, who have done their investing and are now resting on their oars.
I think again that is an excellent point that you make. So I want to go across to Narinder Vadhwa first at this point. Mr. Vadhwa, you said not all millionaires are leaving. But you know, please respond to what Dilip Cherin is saying. He says the concern is that the old and the retired millionaires are probably the ones who are choosing to stay back, while the young and restless, who are actually real creators of wealth and jobs for the future, may be packing their bags and leaving for greener pastures abroad along with their families. If that is indeed the case, and I strongly suspect it may well be, then we should definitely be concerned. What then happens to our demographic dividend? Dilip Cherin is right. These are the people who are ultimately expected to invest in India's future. And if they don't see a future for themselves and their families in India, then we should worry.
Yeah, definitely. I echo the view of Mr. Cherian. See, what is happening, the new millennial and their parents is who say so. I will blame the education system in India, although we have a strong system, but nothing is changing in our education system. They want to explore, various courses abroad, and they stay there, and they call their parents also to stay with them. That is what is happening in the all across the classes. Middle class used to be the leading in that numbers, but now it is all across. Their kids are going abroad for these studies, for further studies, and they stay back there and they call their parents. So this is a phenomena we have to see, that why it is happening, why we are not able to, create the institutions like Harvard's or Stanford or say other institution. Why can't people stay here? Especially the elite class, their kids are staying in India and studying here, and huge opportunity for. I am from the capital market. I can see that I have been in the market for last 35 years, and what we see that this is the sweet spot for India, and every word is struggling for their economic activity. The way we are growing, people will definitely look back to India, and I know many of them who are coming back to India in my own relations. They have, they went to US, stayed there for 15 years. Now they are exploring how they can come back to India and start again in Indian territory or Indian soil, basically. So the voice dynamic word, we can't say it's a pattern. There is no pattern as such, although we are debating on that. But many people are coming back also. And as I have said earlier, there is a case for tax terrorism. It's not tax terrorism. I'll say high-headedness of the bureaucracy in the government, complex tax laws, delayed dispute resolution, retrospective tax demands, which bothers these entrepreneurs. They don't want to. They are not able to handle all these years these kind of issues, which were promised by the government that they will be resolved very soon, and there will be ease of doing business. So far, ease of doing business has become a slogan only.
Exactly.
Nothing on the ground level has happened. So that is one part of it. But I identify this as a phenomena all across. Kids are going abroad and they don't want to come back to India.
And that is the sad reality. You're right in pointing out how bureaucratic tangles and red tape and delays in redressal of disputes and grievances, are all contributing factors. You also talked about India's education system, the fact that we do not have the kind of institutes that exist in countries like the US, the Ivy Leagues, for example. Let me take this to Yogendra Kapoor. Yogendra Kapoor, you know, if what Dilip Cherian is saying is indeed true, that most of the millionaires who are choosing to stay back in India are the old and retired individuals, and it's the younger ones who are choosing to pack their bags and leave, then what does that mean for our demographic dividend? Should we not worry? And look at the irony. Some of the top global CEOs today are people of Indian origin. Not one of them is today a citizen of this country, however. They're all living abroad, most of them in the United States.
Right now, I completely agree with Mr. Cherian when he says that the people, the younger lot, is the one which is, which believes in taking risks, which, believes in adaptability to the changing times, and they are the ones who are moving out of the country. Now, my point is that, you see, I feel that the next decade belongs to India because there are several reasons if we put them in the right perspective. Now, we have a demographic dividend in the form of largest number of youth in the world, and it is very important that they need to be given adequate freedom to express themselves, to take decisions, to translate their ideas into actions. Now, the very fact that we need to ask us a question that why has India not been able to produce world-class institutions? If you look at banks, if you look at any airlines, if you look at any construction industry, you will not find a single Indian institution among the top 5 in the world. So the very fact that we have seen that the governments in the past have been more of roadblocks and not being facilitators. So it's very important for the government to learn that they need to act fast in case they want to translate into 10 or 20 trillion dollar economy. So the point is that in case they don't take adequate steps here on and don't act as facilitators in terms of whether it is ease of doing business, whether it is helping the entrepreneur to take decisions and be a part of the development story, it will only end up into a situation that we will see more of younger lot moving out of the country.
And that cannot augur well for India at all. Dilip Cherian, let me come back to you. Once again, I have 2 questions for you. Yes, we don't have Harvards and Stanfords here, but we do have our IITs and IIMs, and yet that does not really seem to be changing the scenario significantly in India's favor. My first question to you is, please tell me, why is it that some of the top global CEOs today are people of Indian origin, yet not one of them lives in India? They've all given up the Indian passport. That's one. 2, if we all agree that ease of doing business is just a phenomenon that seems to exist on paper, not in reality, let's get into solution mode. What does the government of India need to do to not only improve the ease of doing business, but to essentially stem this tide?
The reason why the top global CEOs are not holders of Indian passports is a mixture of variety of reasons. One, many of them have been living in those countries for many years and have become naturalized citizens. Second, they also recognize that the speed at which they need to travel across geographies, having an overseas passport is a great blessing. They don't have to worry about visas. And that's extraordinarily important when you have unplanned, unpredictable, constant travel schedules. And as far as making India a better place to do business, I think government has all the answers, Neha. It just needs someone to say, hey, let's spend the next 5 years encouraging each businessman to do his best, to grow at his fastest, and to add at his most capable. The problem is that we always worry about what is it that they're doing wrong. Sure, we have a multitude of sins amongst our people. When you have a multitude of laws, you also have a multitude of sins. Reduce the laws, the number of sinners will come down. The number of sinners will come down will mean that you can ease laws even further. And then you will see the rocket-like growth that India will be on. I believe we have the demographic advantage. I believe we have the market advantage. I believe we also have the innovation advantage. We are the masters of global jugaad. But if you combine all this, but put them in front of a wall which refuses to listen to them, pay them adequate respect, and be willing to change where it needs to be changed, then I'm afraid we are tackling a situation of difficulty of doing business on a regular basis.
So let me ask you this follow-up question before I go across to the other panelists. Yogendra Kapoor said earlier, and rightly so, that wealth creators in this country are often treated and viewed with suspicion. They're not accorded the respect that they deserve. They're often hounded because of the kind of political environment that exists in this country. While it is obviously not my case that our complex and convoluted laws should not be amended, but I'm playing the devil's advocate here. On the one hand, you may have wealth creators who feel hounded, but on the other hand, you have the Vijay Malias, the Mehul Choksis, the Nirav Modis of the world. How do you strike that balance?
Every country in the world has black sheep. As I said, when you have so many laws that almost anything you do can be considered a flagrant violation of some law or the other, then you are creating more and more opportunities to turn individuals into criminals. If you bring down the barrier, I'm not saying bring down the moral standards, I'm just saying bring down the numbers of regulations, then the number of violators will come down, and then you will encourage more people. The Mehul Choksis or the Vijay Malias or the Nirav Modis exist in every society. China has had to deal with them. America has had to deal with them. Yes, they deal with them.
So don't throw away the baby with the bathwater.
That's the point. And I think that is what we need to recognize and what government needs to act on. We've had enough talk of this over 40 years. Post-liberalization, this has become a kind of mantra of competitive easing of laws of business. But has it actually happened? No. Do we need to figure out what needs to be done? No. Because I think everybody in the government and certainly every association has made enough representations. And the last point, and I'll stop with this, is that when is the last time that you saw Indian ministers, when they are abroad, being ambassadors of Indian businessmen? I'm not talking of Indian business. I'm saying, have you seen them championing like the American president, like the Russian president, like the Chinese premier? Have you seen them actually pushing for individual issues? I don't see that. I don't see them being
not even in Davos. Not even in Davos.
Not nowhere. You don't see them pushing for individual businesses. They're always scared and they want to talk about the business front, or generally about a business and industry. That's not enough. You need to recognize individuals of excellence. You need to put them on the pedestal they deserve. And you need to make sure that they get the respect and place aside from some flimsy national honors which you may give them, which is all right, which is great, which is important. But those are only what I call, like popcorn on the top of something else. But you need more than just the confetti. You need real support.
Why is that real support not forthcoming? Yogendra Kapoor. Dilip Cherian says the government of India has all the answers. This is something that has been discussed, debated, dissected ad nauseum in this country. Not for years, but for decades. you know, several delegations of businessmen and women have made presentations before the government, before the finance ministry. The government knows what it needs to do, Mr. Cherian says. The government has all the answers, but clearly the government is not acting on it. Therefore, I'm going to ask you, what solutions would you offer for this problem? What would your advice to the government of India be, as somebody who deals with all the tax related headaches that the rich have to deal with?
Right. See, the first and most important aspect in this is the creation of trust between the government and the industry. I mean, you cannot be at loggerheads and then you expect miracles to happen. So what is very important is that the government, the industry, they need to sit together and understand that there needs to be an integration of two, and then only the fusion will take place, which will benefit in the development of the country. And yes, I completely agree with him that they need to be more vocal. I mean, it's not that you keep, I mean, any gray or difficult issues to yourself and not be open with the government. And that is where it is very important that they need to have an open dialogue with the government at regular intervals, whether through the industry forums, whether it is CII or FICCI. But then the most important thing is that it has to be a participative process wherein both understand each other's viewpoint, respect each other's viewpoint, and take decisions which are best for the development of the country.
Okay, that's well summarized. But Narendra Wadhwa, let me come to you now. What solutions would you offer? What would your advice to the government of India be? And what is holding the government back, according to you, from actually acting on the advice and recommendations of industry leaders that they have been receiving for years and decades now? Is the government not listening to India Inc.?
So I have been part of various delegations to government, Ministry of Finance, being part of the SOCHM and FICCI. What I have seen, we have all the laws, they know everything. Only part is execution. They lack execution, we lack execution. We have best brain in the government also. They know everything, but only part, country of our size is moving very slow in execution part. They have to exceed. They have to accelerate these execution thing, and everything is in place. I totally agree with you. Ease of doing is a slogan so far. We have to implement it at the ground level, and you know, I must add it here that, you know, people, HNIs and high net worth individual, they move out of country just because they want quality of life, which is again we are observing for last 10 years or 5-6 years that infrastructure is in place. Now we have an international level of infrastructure. There is security. There are all healthcare things which were lacking here. We are able to get those healthcare infrastructure and all cultural amenities which used to be, we used to go out and, you know, experience those things which are here. And going forward, I have a different view. As you said, you are acting as a devil's advocate. I'll have a different view here that people may move out because of the internationalization of our economies and everything. But this is a place to stay back, and this is a country of huge opportunities.
It is a country of huge opportunities. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. But we don't want to miss the bus. I think that is the critical point here, and the government of India needs to address this on a war footing. What is holding it back is the million-dollar question. As we wrap up this discussion, Dilip Cherian, let me come back to you. You know, I want to shift the focus just a little bit. We're talking about wealthy Indians leaving the country. Where are they going? Let me rattle off a few names for you and our viewers. As I said at the start of the show, for global millionaires, the most preferred destinations seem to be Australia, followed by the UAE, and then Singapore, United States, Switzerland, Canada, Greece, France, Portugal, and New Zealand, in that order. Interestingly, the wealthy Indians seem to be moving in hordes to Dubai and Singapore. So tell me, why Dubai and Singapore, Dilip Cherian? And are you by any chance planning to pack your bags and move to Dubai or Singapore?
Let me start with the last question. No, I'm not.
Good to know. Reassuring.
The reason why Singapore and Dubai are a very simple reason. You pretty much know what is going to happen over the next 5 years. And the second reason is that both of them are within a 5-hour flight from India. Dubai is barely 3 hours and Singapore is about 5 hours. The third reason, you can enter and exit those airports in under 1 hour. That's a huge advantage because the speed at which you can travel from there to India and to any other country is immensely an advantage. Because as several people have said on the panel, business is getting global. Indian businessmen and businesswomen are looking at global opportunities. They consider the world one, which is the approach we need to take if you're in business. And they find that the mobility index out of Dubai and Singapore is probably among the swiftest. Staying in Australia or staying in Netherlands or something has its advantages, but they are far outweighed by the ease of entry, exit, and establishing processes. They're both expensive cities. Both Dubai and Singapore are high-cost cities. But businessmen who are looking to move are not worried by those costs.
They are not worried. They have the big bucks. You will not have to worry. Someone like me will have to worry. Yogendra Kapoor, final word to you. Are your rich clients also moving to Dubai and Singapore?
Not at all. They have high hopes of remaining back here in India only. And they see a major change happening over a period of time. And I think it's a matter of time that we will see a great country going forward.
All right. So I certainly hope the three of you are staying put here in India. The country certainly remains a bright spot on the global economic landscape, like I said at the start of the show. But yes, these figures are worrying, and it is time the government of India addressed this issue. On that note, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on the show and sharing your perspective on this much talked about issue. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and thanks to the viewers for watching.
On 20th March 2023, a mob of Khalistan supporters vandalized the Indian High Commission in London. A day later, the Indian consulate in San Francisco was attacked.